Thanks everyone for coming, and actually my background was graphic design, and I want to start why I become interested in this research and how the process goes on till now. The topic that I'm working on for the moment is kinetic typography as a potential solution to the needs of bilingualism. But I want to break it down into different parts to tell you how I came into this topic and how I chose this. Actually, I'm originally from Iran, and the mother tongue language that I'm using is Persian. So it's the language that I always deal with. And since I came here, I did my master in graphic design. I start my working in graphic design to start up my own company. So most of my clients were those who wants me to create a design for them, which includes both Persian or Arabic and English language. So I always had to put the Arabic and Latin script beside each other. I use the word Arabic script because Arabic script refers to all alphabets that use in written language of Persian, Arabic, and some other languages. So even if I have Persian language, I use Arabic script. So I become interested that how can I put these two different scripts beside each other to look nice and as a design, and also transfer the information to the users in an easier way when I give them a design and a like flyer or business card that have both language in a limited space. And as you see, this kind of juxtaposition of two different scripts is used in the city, especially in bilingual cities a lot. Here is a sample of what you see for the road signage in Dubai, or as you see in this picture, it's the sign shops in Edgware Road in London that you see the shops using to put two different languages beside each other, and always they want to try to translate whatever they have into English as well. So sometimes it really looks mess. When you go to that kind of streets, the design looks mess, and sometimes they couldn't convey the information as easy as they want. So I become interested to see that if this kind of typography has ever concerned by any other groups or any other organization or students try to solve this kind of bilingualism to look nicer. So during my research, I found another Lebanese organization that found this kind of problems, and they are trying to work on how they can put the Persian and Arabic script beside each other to look nicer. One of them was typographic matchmaking in the city, which done by Huda Abu Fares. She is a Lebanese, not researcher, but he is doing the project basically for business rather than academic or research. And as you see, the way that they actually apply different projects, and as you see here, they try to approach some three-dimensional artworks to present two different languages in the city in different parts. So here is the other samples that they try to matchmake these two languages. But the problem here was that this kind of works were most like artworks rather than a useful system for other designers or type designers to use it for their works. What I was looking for was how I can matchmake these two different scripts in order to create a system, in order to create an applicable system for other graphic designers or type designers, rather than just the artwork. So I started to research that how I can do that, and in between, it's another sample of that organization works that they applied in the city of Cairo, I think. So during my research, I approached to temporal typography. I become interested in this part of typography as well while I was researching about how to solve the problem of putting two different scripts. Because as you see in temporal typography, the transforming between one letter form, one shape, it happening. That's one shapes, one letter forms morphing to the other letter form. Or in the other samples, there are, for example, one single word is making of objects in animated words. So I become interested how I can bring bilingualism into temporal environment, and how this morphing, or how this transforming of two shapes or two letter forms to other can help the needs of bilingualism in the city. So I started my research actually from this point, that how kinetic typography could be a potential solution to the needs of bilingualism when we want to use two different scripts. In this case, because I chose Arabic and Latin script, I had to compare these two scripts, these two letter forms to each other, and see where can I find the similarities and differences between two letter forms. So when I want to bring them into kinetic environment or temporal environment, based on the differences and similarities, I could create a system. As you see here, Latin and Arabic script are two different. Latin is so geometric. All the letters, even when you use it in capital or lowercase, they all separated. There are a space between each letter form. But as you see in the Arabic script, it's a cursive script, which means letters, when sit beside each other in a word, they connect to each other. And as the result, one single letter forms, for example, maybe it is the best sample, these all red letter form are one single letter form which has different shapes based on the location in a single word. So it was too different. On the other side, when I search more in Persian or Arabic books, I realized that this kind of activity, in order to try to matchmake these two scripts in print area, it's a lot. For example, lots of type designers at the moment are trying to create one typeface in Arabic and English, which when you use those two scripts together with single typeface, so it looks nice. Because, for example, I don't know your background, if you're designer or type designer, if I want to use so specific about type design. But when you use one single typeface, when you want to use the same typeface to write in Arabic, maybe when you put those texts beside each other, it doesn't look nice because of the shape of typeface, or for example, it's serif or sans serif, and with the shape of Arabic one, they might not match. It wouldn't look nice, or it wouldn't be usable. So this is the problem that also exists in Arabic typeface in print area. And in order to come into temporal environment, we should have a basic rule, and we should already solve this problem in print area before we bring it into temporal environment. So I wouldn't go into details, but as the result, I decided to analyze the different components of Latin script and Arabic script to see from which part each letter form of a Latin script is made, and in order to see if we have the same shape in Arabic, and then maybe it was the solution, but I had to search. So one of the ways to see, in order to compare these two scripts, was referring to the nomenclature system of Latin script to see from which different parts the alphabet of Latin script is made. So I searched different randomly, just have a first glance, and it seems that Latin script has a complete nomenclature system. It has like the anatomy of Latin script is already searched, and we have a specific parts for it. For example, different parts of each single letter forms are divided into different categories, and they have name, they have definitions. So I decided to increase my knowledge about this nomenclature system, and then see what is the nomenclature system of the Arabic script, and then compare this together. So when I've seen this, I came to Arabic script to see how Arabic script is divided into different parts. The letter forms are divided into different forms. It was surprising because we didn't have that kind of a standard nomenclature system, or in another language, the anatomy of Arabic script were not divided perfectly, or were not researched perfectly to show how each single letter form is divided into different parts. So, for example, one of them, which was made by Huda Abu Fares, who is from the organization that I've shown you the pictures previously, just use English wording to define each single part of Arabic letter forms. The other one I found in Persian, in Iran, which is in Persian language, but it seems that it is exactly the translation of the words that Huda Abu Fares used in English. And in that case, when you translate one word into the another, there was a problem because the translation might not be the best word to describe that part of Persian script. And the other thing is that, for example, you see some extra letter form like this one, which is not shown on the above one. So there was lots of gap, lots of problems in this part. And the other one, it's done by Pascal Zoghbi, who is an assistant professor in Lebanon University. He tried to match-make each letter with the same phenomenon, or with the same sound that it has in English, and try to divide each letter form into different words. But again, there was a problem that the wording that he used, again, was the translation of each Latin wording. In that case, here I found a gap between my bigger topic, because my bigger aim was to just analyze those two scripts and see how those two can work together in order to bring them into temporal environment. But here I found that in order to achieve that point, I had to have a better understanding of each letter form. And for the Arabic script, we didn't have that. And I had to solve it, or I had to increase my knowledge in order to be enabled to bring it into temporal environment. So I decided in that part also to search in this secondary gap that I found in order to see how it works. So I decided to come back to Latin nomenclature system, which assumed that it's perfectly done, perfectly researched, to see how it worked, how the different terms, how the terminology applied into these letter forms. And then based on that, I bring the same system, or maybe a bit different, into Arabic script letter forms in order to make a nomenclature system for Arabic as well. And so I decided to increase my knowledge in Latin nomenclature more. So I went to the library. It was interesting because with the idea that it's done, I just need to have more reading about it, increase my knowledge. I pick up 5 different books, which has the section, a special section for anatomy of Latin script. When I've seen that, I tried to compare them, because some of them just has illustrative part, which just shown like here. For example, some of them, like this one, they had like illustrative part. They refer each term to different parts, And some of them, like this, they had a descriptive for each single term in order to define each term better, so it gives the users a better understanding of what exact term is. And some of them had this definition parts in their glossary section. But it wasn't the problem. The main thing was that I wanted to compare all those terms from different books to make sure they all are the same, they all are a standard, and realize better about this terminology and bring it into Arabic. But when I compared those 5 books, I realized there are a gap, because not gap, but there were some contradictions between the definition of different terms. For example, sorry, this one, I made it myself, but I've seen that among these 5 books, one of them used the term arm in order to refer to any horizontal strokes that could be open in both sides or could be closed in one side. And also it says arm could be any diagonal stroke that writes from right to left, or some of them says it could be the cursive one of the letter form S. So in that case, with this definition, the term arm could refer to horizontal stroke of letter form T, or 3 horizontal strokes of letter form E, F, L, or the K, Y, W. But the other source didn't use the term arm, it just used the term the term leg to describe the horizontal stroke which is closed in one side, and refer it usually to the bottom horizontal strokes like letter form L or the bottom horizontal stroke of letter E. So it was contradiction between these two sources. One of them says that horizontal stroke of letter form L is also arm, while the other one says no, it's leg. This kind of controversial were a lot. For example, regarding the definition of letter form arm, some of them says that, sorry if I use the word some of them because I couldn't memorize all the writer's name to say, but all are written, I have all the details if you request is available. But some of them, specifically, they said that arm is the horizontal stroke that is open in both sides, but the other one says it's just open in one side. So with that definition, the horizontal stroke of arm couldn't be, the horizontal stroke of letter form T couldn't be arm. So I become more interested that why this kind of difference exists. At first, I thought maybe the books that I've chose were not the right books. Maybe we have some specific sources for typography to refer to regarding nomenclature system. So I decided to pick up more books, to read more books regarding this terminology. I've chose 204 books from the library, which all had the wording of typography, nomenclature, or anatomy of letter form. I searched all, and among them, I just chose 34 books, which I thought that they have the more completed terminology system regarding anatomy of letter forms. So I selected all those 34s, then I make an Excel file. I wrote all the name of the books and the dates that they were published, because I thought maybe the publication date affect on the name of the term or on the kind of terminology that they use. So I categorized them, and then I put each single term that I've seen in each single book. For example, the first one is arm, and then I selected which sources use the term arm to see among these 34 sources how many of them use the term arm and how many of them not. So I did for all the terms that I found, and in total, in collection of all those 34 books, I've found 132 terms to describe the anatomy of Latin script. And here was again another gap in my research from my own aim, which was temporal kinetic typography as a potential solution. So the first gap was the Arabic script, nomenclature about Arabic script, and then the second one was about Latin. So again, I thought I need this to be completed because otherwise I wouldn't have a complete knowledge about this system to bring it into Arabic, to match make these two scripts, to find the similarities, differences, and then bring it, prepare it for my bigger topic. So I made this chart, and from this 132 terms, I assume it could be a really shorter list because, as you see, for example, some of them use the term arm, some of them use the term bar, and most of them, they actually equivalent the term crossbar and bar, but some of them, they make a specific distinguish between these two terms. So by more research, this list become really more shorter. So after I make this list and I've seen that, okay, now how should I understand that what arm really is or what bar really is in order to make the decision and complete my knowledge about that. I made another list and I've started to write, for example, the term, I selected the term arm and I wrote what each single source described the word arm, if they had descriptive section, because some of them didn't have, some of them just had illustrative section. Sorry for that. And I did that for all that 132 terms. I made a big, actually, document about those. And the problems there is that maybe I can point out some of them, that some of them use the term arm, one single term, in order to describe different parts. For example, as I've shown you here, some of them use it for horizontal strokes, some of them use it for diagonal strokes. The second one was that there is a controversial between the definition of each term. Some of them says that if it is the horizontal stroke, it could be open in both sides, and some of them says no, it should be closed in one side, because the other sources use the one which is open in both sides to define the term bar. And then the other thing is that some of them, for example, says crossbar, cross stroke, or the bar could have the same meaning, but some of them says no, these three different terms used for three different shapes. So I'm still working on this part. It's not finished, but the thing is that the other thing before I go to the next part, the other problem that I found in those 34 books were that separate from the contradiction that exists between to define each single term, the way that these books present that nomenclature system, I think it wasn't effective, because they use the alphabetic system to list the terms and to describe them, while because some terms are more similar to each other. For example, we have different terms to describe the horizontal stroke. So if we list them beside each other, it enables the user to compare those terms together and have a better understanding of that term. And the other thing, among these 34 sources, maybe just 3 of them use this system to describe each term beside the illustration part. The other had the definition parts in the glossary section, which you have to see the illustrative parts and then go to the glossary section to see what does it mean. So I think it was an effective way to present that illustrative part. But the thing is that because my aim idea is to achieve how kinetic typography, my aim is this, to see how kinetic typography could be a potential solution to this bilingualism. So I couldn't complete that research about Latin script at this moment. I should just increase my knowledge and then keep it separately to work on it by later on, or maybe I research it separately to achieve this one. But all that I want to say is that when you're doing a research, among that you find different gaps, more problems. Sometimes it's really hard to see how you can manage it, or how much time you should put on each different problem in order to achieve your main goal. Or sometimes it might happen that you have to change your goal and see, okay, the other one is more important, so now I want to change my direction and I want to work on that more rather than my first aim. It all depends on the topic that you choose. So I'm done, and I would be appreciated if you can give me any feedback or